Hey, what's up guys? I am Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Today's video will be a Best Buy walkthrough. I've been doing these for many years now, about 6 years. I go in so you don't have to. It's something that I continue to do even though every major display that is there I have already seen at launch and covered, whether at my home or with our good friends Robert Zone at Value Electronics. Yeah, I still want to go in and support these big box brick and mortar stores for you guys. I think it's very important that they stay around. That way, no matter what we recommend, what we show you in these videos, you can still go check them out in store. I think it's very important to not just take our word for it, but to be able to go into the store and actually see the design and what we describe on screen. The camera changes the image, whether it's through editing or through what we film with, but being able to walk in and really see the panel and see what it can do is so important. Now, the argument behind that, a lot of people will say, well, hey, those panels are in retail mode or store mode, and they would be correct. But keep in mind, instead of seeing a comparison of one panel versus another panel that you'll see here in a controlled environment, you'll be able to walk around that store and see LG, Samsung, Sony, Vizio, TCL, Hisense all go at it, all in their store modes. And you can even request the remote, and I promise you, if you're kind to them, they will help you out and show you what that panel can do outside of retail mode. But I do think it's so important to continue to support these stores, much like physical media. You don't want them to go away. But I think you guys will enjoy the walkthrough today because there's two panels that I have not seen yet that I was able to actually see, thus proving my point how important it is for these stores to be around. Is the Hisense U8H, which is one of the most popular TVs released that I haven't personally seen because they don't have a big presence in store. And we'll be doing a separate video on Hisense, TCL, and even Vizio and their lack of store presence, as well as the LG QNED, which the top of the line has been canceled. We will see the 4K 80 in store today. So even for me, this trip has value that I can also bring to you. Hope you enjoy. I'll see you in the store. By the way, this Friday, we actually have a live stream, community live stream. I'll be doing these every other week. I'll put the date below when this video was taken, when that live stream will be. We'll be able to discuss anything you like. Bring your love, bring your friendship, bring your hate. We'll be there talking for hours, just me and you guys. Let's go into the store. Love you guys. Take care. All right, guys, starting straight away with the Sony A95K Master Series QD OLED. This, to me, is the plasma of TVs this year. The A95K won the Value Electronics TV Shootout. I think it's one of the best raw picture quality displays this year, right beside the Z2 in terms of overall picture quality. Amazing TV. If you have the A95K, it's kind of like you have the best TV. Don't worry about it. You're good. You're all set. Beautiful TV. Very expensive, which is why most of us recommend the Samsung S95B, which is the original QD OLED that came out earlier in the year. S95B is more raw. And while the A95K has the heatsink, the S95K, or S95B, I'm sorry, does not. But the S95B's had a very interesting journey, which I've discussed many times this year with firmware updates. Still a fantastic panel. Excellent value. Now, the reason why I like to do these videos the way you're seeing them as we go over to another excellent, more value pick for Samsung, which is the QN85B. Not really value, but on the cheaper side, is I like to film these as if I'm walking through the store with you as we look at the Hisense U8H, probably one of the most popular TVs this year. I don't cover Hisense TCL very much simply because they don't have a large store presence, which I do frown upon. I do feel like they should be in store, especially at the flagship, for you to see. Very good value, and I will tell you right off the bat, very impressed with its picture quality. Its styling leaves a lot to be desired, but from across the room, you immediately see it. saturated, beautiful, poppy, and you say to yourself, oh, what is that? And I kind of knew it was the Hisense flagship without even seeing what number it was. And I do feel that they need to have their own kiosk, at least in a lot more of their Best Buys, to really show how good their image quality is and not just rely on word of mouth of influencers. Get your advertising going because you have an amazing product. But it's hard for me to recommend, as I recommend nothing that I can't see or touch in person. But they've come such a long way, every year doing a great job. And as we look at the Sony X80 next to it, the Hisense clearly is on another level again. With me, with Hisense, TCL, and those guys, I much rather see you go with a flagship from them than from a lower-end Sony, Samsung, or LG. The amount you get for your money is just not even close. But I was very surprised how good the Hisense looked again from across the room. I'll show you a shot from across the room later where I was like, wow, it does look a lot like a QN90B. It is very bright, very punchy, a lot of beautiful colors. And again, not a big fan of the styling. I don't love their name. Maybe it's just such a long name compared to the others. But get your badge off there, move it off to the side, shrink it down. Now, to the best in the business as far as its design, the Q900B, the 8K flagship, I love their minimalist design. As we know with Samsung, their 8K displays jump off a ledge in terms of pricing around this time of year. If you're going to buy them, it's time to buy them now. They have their bezel-less design, which is funny because a lot of people see OLEDs and think that they're bezel-less. They are not. Samsung is very close to being completely bezel-less. The question for you guys, is 8K something you even consider anymore, considering as we look at another smaller 900B next to the QN95? Is 8K even more out of your peripheral or out of your thought process because of Europe cracking down on power consumption and the lack of any kind of 8K media? Even gaming is so far away from 8K at a high frame rate, though the 4090 and the 3090 Ti are out there, especially the 4090. Without high frame rate, it wouldn't mean much. But the QN95B, another excellent panel. You can see the differences in bezel from that and the 900, which is still, both beautiful. Now here we have the Sony A90K, another panel I didn't see this year at Value Electronics. It kind of came in at a weird time. Interesting design, reminds me a little bit of the A9S Master Series. I don't know if I love the design, but it's an A90K. I didn't go out of my way to cover this one too much simply because it did have the heatsink of the A90J. So I kind of said to myself, all right, when it comes out, and there it is. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a store demo playing as we look at the frame from Samsung. Now, a lot of these TVs did have Best Buy commercials versus their typical demo material. The frame, I always show it because people love the panel. As we look over at another Sony that's kind of hidden here in the corner, is people love the frame. Regardless of its contrast ratio, as you can see here, they do love the design, and there's something to be said about that as we swing over to the X90 in the top and the Sony X95K. Very interesting journey for the X95K this year. I'll be doing this vid coming up called The Worst TV Year, which talks about the confusion of reviews and different opinions that really made you guys confused this year. X95K there at 75 inches, the X90 at 65. Both TVs pretty panned initially, other than for me and some others, causing a lot of confusion for you guys. They're both still highly recommended. X95K, especially at the larger sizes, 75 and 85. X90, I enjoyed a lot. Took a few updates, really improved its local dimming. So yes, I have a video coming out soon about us as influencers, if we are a good thing or a bad thing. Who do you trust? Who do you listen to? We are really steering the industry now kind of going forward and what people buy that watch YouTube. And it's an interesting conversation I'm really looking forward to having as we move over to Samsung. Samsung always represents well in any Best Buy that you go into. But again, they had an interesting year with the S95B. As you look right there, that Hisense is just leaping off the wall. I don't want to see any more empty TV stands, but that's typically where the 800B would be. Their second level down. 8K panels, we pan over to LG. LG this year, tried and true, C2, G2. Did a great job with their panels, upgrades from last year. But as you look over here, you see the QNED at the bottom. I'll show you that in a second, which I think also really confused its own customers. So this year was the year of confusion, which I really want to discuss as being the worst TV year. As we look at the QNED, it was not because the TVs weren't great. It was just so much confusion and misinformation from the manufacturers, from us, leaving a lot of people to wait or to pull the trigger too early. So it was a very interesting year. Now, the QNED, the 8K flagship was canceled. Now you have the 80 here, which I still think looks fine. I'll go back to that in a moment. Moving over to Sony, these are the Sony kiosks, which I'll pan back to because at times they'll play Spider-Man or some movie that I can't show. But I do like their X80, always like that series at a larger panel as it's such a good value. Now I want to pan over and spend a little time with Vizio. I also do have a video coming out about them and the disappointment I feel for Vizio, but not just disappointment in the company, but the fact is I really always root and championed this company and I want to see them succeed and I want to know what's happening with them as I pan back to the QNED. Now, the QNED, again, by cutting out the 90 series this year, I feel they consolidated the top series to that series as we pan down, quickly zooming into the Hisense. Dollar for dollar, it's very hard to compare that to the Hisense, as the Hisense is just very saturated. It's got a great black level, and just very beautiful TV. And the QNED does look nice. It's just hard to know where it fits in any lineup against any other mini LED. I loved what they brought last year, or at least as a beginning, and I should say I liked what they brought last year. I wanted to see what they were going to bring this year. Going back to the Hisense, I want to just show you the body, and the demo is off. It's got the glossy screen. I do not like the bezel, do not like how thick it is. Get your name off the badge, move it over to the side, minimalize it. They do have a long way to go in terms of styling, which I think will take them to the next level and supplant TCL, or not sure what the race is between those two. Now, swinging back to the Sony kiosk, Sony does represent well more streamlined release this year with the X95 not having a 55-inch, kind of keeping a few panels, Z9K, which is not in store. Going back to the QNED, spent a little time with their demo material. But I think going forward this year, you're going to see more streamlined as Sony has gotten rid of all of their in-between models. They have the lower and 80, then they had the X90, 95, that was it. Z9K, that was it. Keeping it more basic. To me, I just need clear and concise putting of what their TVs are. And that's where Hisense, TCL, and those guys, they have so many different models around from different years, it's hard to know what year they are. QNED looks nice, nothing shocking. I wish it was a VA panel. I think they would dominate. Their light control is very good when you're on angle. I think it's good. Look for it to be a even better value as the prices fall. Came out at a really weird time of the year. Good thing about the QNED can also be had at a Costco. But good to see my Best Buy here, local to me, have all of these panels. They're really not missing anything right now other than the Z9K. They always had a Z series since the Z9D debuted way back in 2016. As I come back over to Vizio, again, I will do an entire video on Vizio and their history. They've been around a lot longer than you think. One of my best buddies had a Vizio Plasma in 2000, just to bring that into proper context. They spend the money on the kiosk, which TCL and Hisense really don't do. TCL puts the little box up, and that's not what I would call a kiosk. I'd rather have them do the pad that you see here and really flesh it out. Vizio is still doing very well with their sound bars, which apparently are excellent. But for the TV technology, I always loved where they were headed. I always loved that they were going against the grain with the brightest LEDs. They were all about brute force. Apparently, this is a P series, which I wouldn't know. They have a black bezel now, which was relegated to the M series. And they're not exactly cheap either. So I want to go back and do an entire video on Vizio. Let me know what you think of them and if you would even consider them, because for me, they are exactly where they should be, where Hisense and TCL are. As we finish up on the A80K, which I think is the trend going forward for Sony, is incremental upgrades as far as being a little bit better than the A80J. Some people like the A80J better and went back to it, which is good because in that way what you can do is you can always go back and buy last year's. Now that the feature sets are more consistent, we don't have HDMI 2.1 delineation anymore. Really quickly want to show you Marantz's new receivers that Best Buy does have in. They didn't have new receivers for a while. They do have a new design. They kind of concave in. But what I meant about feature set, I want to know for you guys in regards to TVs. Now that HDMI 2.1 is commonplace, it's a little easier to recommend last year's TV, which was hard to do after HDMI 2.1 was introduced. Now I can go back and say grab an 80J versus an 80K. Now showing you the floor, we are littered here with the TCLs and the Hisense and the Amazon Fire TVs. This is really where they go after the Black Friday setup and it stays throughout the holidays. Special shout out to Jim from this particular Best Buy, my local Best Buy, who allows me to film here. But there's the TCL kiosk right there, which is empty, which really never replaced the 646 debacle from last year. But a lot of these TVs are still set up. Sound bars, it's a clean environment. And you have your LG C2, the smaller ones. But I want to quickly show you physical media. I'm doing a separate video on this. This is shot from about 3 months ago, where you have empty racks, but 2 racks. And physical media is not only dying, it's dead. And I'll do a full video on this. It saddens me very much because, guys, when I go in these stores, I go in and I buy a movie each time, and I have found nothing to buy. There is really nothing there. But this is actually a few months ago. You can actually see there's a rack behind it. There used to be 3 rows of these as I pan around the store. They were empty, but at least they were there. There's the other side, but you can see there's a couple racks behind it. And as we pan around, while they were empty, at least they were there. These paper ones became more obvious. And then as we move over to what's there now, you can see that it's down to a single rack. Single rack, and then these really small paper neglected new release bins. There's really nothing there. So I feel like what's happened those things right there. So it really saddens me to see this. I don't want to end on a sad note, but we'll be doing a video on the death of physical media, at least in store, which is where it starts. You got these little boxes, you can unwrap them and move them around. Look, nothing. And the same with Walmart, Target. I mean, they're down to where vinyl, which is still, just a novelty at this point, unless you're really dedicated into vinyl. There's nothing. All right, guys, let me know what you think about the Hisense, the QNED, what you think about physical media as it disappears. How are you guys? We'll be doing a live stream tomorrow at 5 p.m. for a few hours. Hope all is well. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day.